Why Yahweh sometimes shakes everything around you before revealing what cannot be shaken. The provocative question: have you ever watched an area of your life collapse and wondered if Yahweh had abandoned you? What if the very thing you call destruction is actually divine preparation? What if the shaking is not evidence of his absence, but evidence of his involvement? Before Yahweh establishes what is eternal, he often exposes everything that is temporary. The pattern interrupt. Most people pray for stability while unknowingly building their lives upon foundations that cannot survive eternity. We ask Yahweh to bless structures he is trying to remove. We ask him to preserve comforts he is trying to replace. The shaking feels painful because we mistake our temporary foundations for permanent ones. The Kingdom Revelation. The book of Hebrews reveals a profound truth for every generation. Yahweh allows shaking so that what cannot be shaken may remain. The purpose of the shaking is not punishment. The purpose is revelation. When everything unstable begins to move, the eternal kingdom becomes visible. The modern world is obsessed with security. People pursue financial security, emotional security, political security, technological security, social security. Yet history repeatedly demonstrates how fragile human systems truly are. Economies shift. Governments change. Institutions fail. Relationships evolve. Health can change unexpectedly. Entire cultures can transform within a generation. What appears permanent often proves temporary. The writer of Hebrews understood this reality. Near the conclusion of the letter, he references a powerful prophetic declaration concerning a future shaking, not merely of earthly things, but of everything that can be shaken. The message is unsettling, yet it is also deeply hopeful, because the goal of the shaking is not chaos. The goal is clarity. Yahweh is not interested in destroying what is eternal. He is interested in exposing what was never eternal to begin with. Many believers assume spiritual growth occurs primarily through addition. More knowledge, more blessings, more opportunities, more success. Yet throughout Scripture, Yahweh often works through subtraction before addition. Before Abraham became the father of many nations, he had to leave familiar territory. Before Moses led Israel, he spent years in the wilderness. Before David sat on a throne, he lived in caves. Before Yeshua began his public ministry, he endured the wilderness. The pattern appears repeatedly. Yahweh often removes false foundations before establishing true ones. This process feels uncomfortable because human nature becomes attached to familiar structures. Even unhealthy structures can feel safe simply because they are familiar. Many people remain in stagnant situations because uncertainty feels more threatening than dissatisfaction. Yet Hebrews teaches that the kingdom of Yahweh operates differently. The kingdom is not built upon comfort. It is built upon truth. And truth has a way of exposing everything that is unstable. Sometimes Yahweh allows circumstances that reveal where our trust has actually been placed. We may claim our confidence is in him, yet a shaking reveals whether our confidence was actually in our career, our reputation, our relationships, our resources, our plans, or our personal strength. Shaking exposes reality, not because Yahweh enjoys our discomfort, but because he desires our freedom. A foundation built upon temporary things eventually creates anxiety. Why? Because deep down we know temporary things cannot guarantee lasting security. Anything that can be lost eventually produces fear. Anything that depends entirely upon circumstances eventually creates instability. This is why Hebrews directs believers toward a kingdom that cannot be shaken. Notice the language. Not a kingdom that might survive. Not a kingdom that usually survives. A kingdom that cannot be shaken. The confidence of believers is not found in earthly permanence. It is found in heavenly permanence. This perspective transforms how we interpret difficult seasons. Many people view every disruption as evidence that something has gone wrong. Hebrews invites us to ask a different question. What if the disruption is revealing something necessary? What if the shaking is exposing a weakness that needs strengthening? What if the uncertainty is uncovering a misplaced dependency? What if Yahweh is clearing away lesser things so greater things can emerge? The early believers understood this principle. Many faced persecution, loss, rejection, hardship, yet their faith remained strong. Why? Because their confidence was anchored beyond earthly circumstances. They possessed something that external pressure could not destroy, an unshakable inheritance, an eternal hope, a kingdom beyond the reach of human instability. This message is especially relevant in an age dominated by constant change. Every day brings new headlines, new crises, new fears, new uncertainties. The temptation is to build our peace upon conditions. I will be at peace when everything settles down. Yet the world rarely settles down. Hebrews offers a better foundation. Peace that exists because of Yahweh's unchanging character. Hope that survives uncertainty. Faith that remains steady during transition. Confidence that is rooted in eternity rather than circumstances. The greatest danger is not the shaking itself. The greatest danger is resisting what the shaking is trying to reveal. Some people spend their entire lives rebuilding the very structures Yahweh is attempting to remove. They cling to outdated identities, broken patterns, false securities, familiar comforts, instead of allowing the refining process to complete its work. But those who surrender discover something remarkable. What initially felt like loss becomes liberation. What felt like destruction becomes reconstruction. What appeared to be an ending becomes preparation for a greater beginning. The writer of Hebrews wanted believers to understand that they belonged to something greater than the temporary world surrounding them. They had received a kingdom that could not be shaken. Not because the world would stop changing, but because Yahweh remains unchanged. The same truth applies today. Your peace cannot rest upon circumstances. Your identity cannot rest upon success. Your hope cannot rest upon human systems. Your confidence cannot rest upon temporary structures. Everything temporary will eventually reveal its limitations. Everything earthly will eventually reveal its fragility. Everything built solely by human hands will eventually face its test. But the kingdom of Yahweh remains. His promises remain. His truth remains. His covenant remains. His faithfulness remains. Beloved, if you find yourself in a season of shaking, do not assume Yahweh has abandoned you. The shaking may be revealing where your true foundation lies. Allow Him to remove what is temporary. Allow Him to expose what is unstable. Allow Him to strengthen what is eternal. For when the dust settles and the shaking ends, those who have built their lives upon Yahweh's truth will discover that the most valuable things were never the things that moved. The most valuable things were the things that remained. And those who learn to stand upon the unshakable kingdom will possess a peace that no storm, no crisis, and no shaking can ever take away.